I woke up in an alley, my mind a foggy haze, unable to recall how I'd ended up there. My heart raced as I stumbled back home, only to find my furniture vanished into thin air, leaving me paralyzed with fear. Just days before, I'd been sitting on the terrace of my suburban home, watching the quiet ebb and flow of the street. The trees swayed gently in the afternoon breeze, their leaves whispering secrets of seasons past. The fragrant flowers in my garden released a perfume that transported me back to cherished memories, each petal a time capsule of joy. I took a deep breath, savoring the rare tranquility that enveloped me like a warm blanket. My thoughts drifted to my son, Samuel, always the good boy, even now as a grown man. Despite his demanding job, he never failed to carve out time for his old mom. I wished he wouldn't stretch himself so thin on my account. After all, he had his own life to manage, his own dreams to chase. As I gazed down the street that led to Samuel's house, I couldn't help but feel a mix of pride and concern. Little did I know that this peaceful moment was the calm before a storm that would turn my world upside down.
Meanwhile, Samuel sat at his office desk, staring at the never-ending pile of paperwork. He glanced at the clock and realized it was time to visit his mother. "There's so much to handle here," he thought, "but Mom needs me." She had always raised him with love and devotion, and now it was his turn to give back. Especially now that she was getting older and more frail, he couldn't leave her alone. He knew he had to find a solution to keep her safe and well cared for. Samuel put away his documents and grabbed his car keys, his mind already racing. As he drove towards Anita's house, he pondered the best options to ensure his mother's happiness. Maybe it's time to hire a caregiver, he mused. He needed someone to be with her during the day, helping with daily tasks and making sure she took her medications correctly. That way, he could focus on work without constant worry. "I've got to find someone trustworthy," he thought, "someone who'll look after Mom like she's family." Samuel mulled over these thoughts as he drove down the tree-lined streets of the suburban neighborhood.
I welcomed Samuel with a warm smile as he arrived at my house. We sat in the cozy living room, surrounded by family photos and mementos from past travels. My heart swelled with love as I gazed at my son, my pride and joy. "Samuel, my darling boy," I said, my voice thick with emotion, "you've been working yourself to the bone." I didn't want to be a burden on him, knowing he had his own responsibilities. I assured him that I was fine, with friends nearby and my garden to tend to. His visits alone were enough to brighten my days, I told him, gratitude coloring my words. Samuel took my hand, and I could see the need for honesty in his eyes. He said he knew I was trying to put his mind at ease, but he couldn't help worrying about me. The thought of me feeling lonely or struggling alone weighed heavily on him. He confessed he'd been considering hiring a caregiver to help with daily tasks when he couldn't be there. His words were laced with concern and love as he expressed his desire to give me the best care possible. I listened carefully to my son's thoughts, turning them over in my mind. I understood his concerns, I told him, and if it would ease his mind to have someone nearby to help, I might consider it. But I was firm in my desire for someone trustworthy, someone who genuinely cared. I didn't want a stranger carelessly invading my privacy, I explained, my eyes reflecting both acceptance and caution. Samuel's face relaxed into a relieved smile at my understanding. He promised to look for someone with excellent references, someone kind and considerate. He assured me he'd choose carefully, as I was the most important person in his life. As he pledged to start the search right away, I could sense the weight lifting from his shoulders. My heart was touched by his devotion, even as a part of me wrestled with the idea of needing help. It was a bittersweet moment, realizing that our roles were slowly shifting, but I was grateful for his love and care.
In the days that followed, Samuel dedicated himself to finding the ideal caregiver for his mother. He interviewed numerous candidates, meticulously analyzing their experience and references. After an exhaustive search, he discovered Jeremy, a 35-year-old with extensive experience in elder care and impeccable recommendations. As Samuel finalized the hiring details, he thought to himself, "I hope Jeremy is the right fit." He seemed genuinely interested in his patient's well-being and showed a compassionate heart. Samuel knew this was exactly what his mother needed. The process reminded him of when he'd helped his own kids find their first jobs, but this time, the stakes felt so much higher. He couldn't help but feel a mix of hope and apprehension as he prepared to introduce Jeremy to his mother.
I was feeling a bit anxious about Jeremy's arrival. I couldn't help but think, I hope he understands my needs and doesn't try to change my life too much. All I needed was a little help, you see, but I didn't want to lose my independence. As I bustled around the house, tidying up to welcome my new caregiver, my mind was a whirlwind of emotions. It was like standing on the edge of a diving board, torn between the excitement of the plunge and the fear of the unknown depths below. The day Jeremy arrived, my house was spick and span, every nook and cranny gleaming like a new penny. My son, Samuel, bless his heart, escorted Jeremy to the front door and introduced us. "Mom, this is Jeremy," he said, his voice warm and reassuring, like a cozy blanket on a chilly evening. He went on, "Jeremy, this is my mother, Anita. I hope you two hit it off and that this will be a peaceful new chapter for both of you." Jeremy extended his hand to me, his smile as gentle as a summer breeze. He said he was pleased to meet me and that he was there to help with anything I needed. He spoke of making sure I was comfortable and hoped we'd build a good relationship. His words were laced with confidence and professionalism, reminding me of the doctors I used to work with back in my nursing days. I tried to mask my apprehension as I shook his hand. "Thank you, Jeremy," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I hope we can make this work. I pray this new phase will be good for both of us." I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I needed to say next. "There are a few things I need help with, but I want you to understand that my independence is precious to me. Let's see if we can strike a balance, shall we?" My words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of my fears and hopes, reflecting the delicate dance of accepting help without losing control of my life. In those first few days, Jeremy was like a guardian angel, always there but never intrusive. He helped with meals, tended to my garden with the care of a master gardener, and accompanied me on my morning walks. One day, as I watched him lovingly care for my prized roses, a thought bloomed in my mind. "Jeremy seems to be a good soul," I mused. "He's kind and respects my space. Maybe this situation isn't as daunting as I'd feared. Perhaps I can get used to having someone around." It was like seeing a ray of sunshine break through storm clouds. Samuel, ever the dutiful son, visited regularly. He noticed the budding trust between Jeremy and me, like watching a delicate flower slowly unfurl its petals. "I'm glad things are working out, Mom," he said one afternoon, his relief palpable. "I think Jeremy's the right fit for taking care of you. Knowing you're safe and well cared for lets me focus on work without worry." His words were like a soothing balm to my anxious heart. "I hope this peace continues and we all live more tranquilly," he added, his eyes twinkling with hope. As the days turned into weeks, Jeremy and I began to build a bond of trust, as strong and comforting as my favorite quilt. I found myself sharing stories from my younger days, and Jeremy listened with genuine interest, hanging on my every word like a child listening to a bedtime story. With each passing day, I felt more at ease. I never imagined I'd feel so comfortable with someone I've just met, I thought to myself one evening. There's something special about Jeremy that puts me at ease. Maybe I really can trust him. It was like finding a kindred spirit in the most unexpected place. Meanwhile, Jeremy seamlessly integrated into my daily routine, like a missing puzzle piece finally falling into place. I overheard him muttering to himself one day as he prepared my afternoon tea. "Anita is a remarkable woman, full of stories and wisdom," he said softly. "I'm grateful to be able to help with her life and be a part of it. I hope this trust between us continues to grow and that I can truly make a difference in her days." His words warmed my heart like a cup of hot cocoa on a cold winter's night.
As Samuel tried to balance his work and caring for his mother, he began to feel more confident seeing the relationship growing between Anita and Jeremy. "Seeing Mom more settled and receiving good care puts my mind at ease," he thought to himself. "Knowing she's in good hands allows me to focus on my job and my own responsibilities." As he planned his next visit to his mother, Samuel reflected, "I hope this is the start of a new, better life for all of us." The weight of worry that had been pressing on his shoulders for months seemed to lift a little. He could almost feel the tension leaving his body, like a deep breath after holding it for too long. Samuel realized that this arrangement wasn't just helping his mother, it was giving him a new lease on life too. He smiled to himself, thinking of how sometimes the best solutions come from unexpected places. With a lighter heart, he turned his attention to the work on his desk, feeling more prepared to face the challenges ahead.
I began to notice small things disappearing around the house. It was like playing a maddening game of hide and seek with my own possessions. "Where are my keys? They're always on the entryway table," I muttered to myself, frustration bubbling up inside me like a kettle about to whistle. The ring my late husband gave me was gone too, and my heart ached at its absence. I didn't want to think ill of Jeremy, but these things never happened before he arrived. It felt like I was walking on eggshells in my own home, always on high alert. "Maybe I'm just imagining things," I tried to reassure myself, but the doubt gnawed at me like a persistent toothache. I found myself frantically searching the house for my lost items, my anxiety growing with each empty drawer and bare surface. My friend Melinda, a police officer, noticed my unease during her regular visits. She sat next to me on the living room sofa, her face etched with genuine concern. Melinda commented that I seemed worried and asked if everything was all right. She noted that I'd been a bit restless lately, and knowing how meticulous I usually am, she was concerned about this change in my behavior. Melinda assured me she was there if I needed anything and urged me to talk to her about whatever was bothering me. Her words were like a warm embrace, and I felt a glimmer of hope that someone might understand. I took Melinda's hand, deciding to open up about my fears. "Melinda," I began, my voice barely above a whisper, "I think I might be becoming paranoid." I told her about the disappearing items, feeling silly even as I said it out loud. "I know it sounds trivial, but I don't misplace things like this," I explained, my voice trembling slightly. I hesitated before mentioning Jeremy, not wanting to accuse anyone without proof. "And Jeremy? I don't know. He's been acting strangely. Something feels off, but maybe it's just my imagination running wild." As I confided in Melinda, I felt a mix of fear and relief wash over me, like waves lapping at the shore. When I visited Samuel at his office to share my concerns, he listened carefully, but I could see the doubt in his eyes. He tried to reassure me, saying that Jeremy came with excellent recommendations. Samuel suggested that stress or aging might be making things seem worse than they really were. He promised to talk to Jeremy and make sure my care was being handled properly, assuring me that we could solve this. As I listened to Samuel, I could sense that he thought I was overreacting, and it made my heart sink. I felt caught between trusting my instincts and doubting my own mind, like a ship lost in a fog with no lighthouse in sight. The uncertainty was suffocating, and I longed for the days when I felt safe and secure in my own home. But a small voice inside me whispered that something wasn't right, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to stay vigilant. I left Samuel's office feeling both comforted and dismissed, wondering if I was truly losing my grip on reality or if my concerns were valid. It was a lonely feeling, being caught between trust and suspicion, and I yearned for someone to truly understand what I was going through.
Later, Samuel called Jeremy, concerned about his mother's anxiety. He suggested increasing her medication slightly to calm her down, but cautioned against giving her too much. Samuel expressed his desire for his mother to relax and feel comfortable, without worrying too much. He reminded Jeremy that he was entrusting his mother's care to him and asked to be notified immediately if any problems arose. Samuel's voice carried a mixture of seriousness and concern as he gave these instructions. Upon hearing Samuel's directions, Jeremy smiled faintly. He reassured Samuel, telling him not to worry and that he would take good care of Anita. Jeremy promised to adjust the medication as requested and to inform Samuel of any changes. His voice carried a false sense of reassurance as he spoke. After the call, Jeremy proceeded to increase the dosage of Anita's sedatives. The situation was taking a troubling turn, with Samuel unknowingly contributing to his mother's vulnerability. Jeremy's actions raised red flags, but they went unnoticed by those who should have been most vigilant. The air of trust that Samuel had placed in Jeremy was being manipulated, like a puppeteer pulling invisible strings. As the sedatives took effect, Anita's ability to voice her concerns would become increasingly compromised. A critical situation was prepared, hidden behind a facade of care and professionalism.
I noticed the unlabeled pills and felt my suspicion growing like a weed in my garden of trust. These pills don't have any labels, I thought, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. Something's not right here. I need to keep my wits about me. The anxiety that had been my constant companion lately threatened to overwhelm me, like a wave crashing over a seawall. One afternoon, I caught Jeremy making a suspicious phone call in the kitchen. He was speaking in a low voice, but I strained my ears and was able to catch fragments of the conversation. I heard him say that everything was going according to plan and that I didn't suspect a thing. He mentioned needing to act quickly before anyone noticed, and promised to report back without fail. Hidden behind the door, I felt a chill run down my spine. What plan is he talking about? I wondered, my mind racing like a hamster on a wheel. I can't let this slide. I need to document everything. The weight of responsibility bore down on me like a heavy blanket knitted by my mother. I began secretly jotting down my observations. When Melinda came to visit, she noticed my growing anxiety with her keen eyes. She asked if anything had changed since we last talked, if I had seen or heard anything suspicious. Melinda explained that she could investigate, but needed me to be honest with her to help in the best way possible. Her determined expression reminded me of the look my late husband would get when he was ready to tackle a difficult project around the house. I looked straight into Melinda's eyes, deciding to trust her completely, like I used to trust my own reflection. Melinda, I began, my voice barely above a whisper. I overheard Jeremy making a suspicious phone call. I told her about the conversation I'd heard, about the plans they were discussing, and how terrified I felt, like a child afraid of the dark. With a trembling voice, I explained that I had noted down what I had overheard and that I feared Jeremy might be planning something against me. As I handed over the notes, I pleaded for her to investigate. I really need your help, I appealed in a voice mixed with fear and hope. I don't know who to trust anymore. It felt like I was standing on the edge of a precipice, and Melinda was my only lifeline, my last chance at safety in a world that had suddenly become so uncertain.
Melinda took Anita's notes and began to secretly investigate Jeremy's past. As she delved deeper, she thought to herself, something's off about this guy. I'm going to find out who he really is and what he's up to. She was determined to protect Anita at all costs, her mind racing as she wondered what these notes might reveal. The adrenaline coursed through her veins as she continued her investigation, feeling like a detective in one of those crime shows she loved to watch. As Melinda dug into Jeremy's background, she uncovered several suspicious details. "This man's got a shady history," she muttered under her breath, her eyes widening as she pieced together the information. She found evidence of false identification, a string of short-lived jobs, and a pattern of always working with the elderly. It was like putting together a jigsaw puzzle, and the picture it revealed was far from pretty. "This is clearly a troubling pattern," Melinda thought, her brow furrowing with concern. She realized she needed to gather more evidence before taking action, but she now had a clearer idea of who they were dealing with. It reminded her of those true crime stories she'd read about in the papers, never imagining she'd be caught up in one herself. As she organized the information she had collected, Melinda's resolve strengthened. No matter what happened, she was determined to protect Anita, just like she would her own mother. Melinda felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders, but she was prepared to face the challenge before her.
I kept a watchful eye on Jeremy, my suspicions growing with each passing day. Something big was brewing, I could feel it in my bones. I couldn't let myself be caught off guard, not when the stakes were this high. Melinda was digging for evidence, bless her heart, but until she came up with something concrete, I knew I had to watch my own back. In this mess, she and Samuel were the only ones I could truly count on. Amidst the chaos swirling around me, I desperately tried to maintain my composure. I took a deep breath, trying to center myself amidst the storm of emotions. It felt like I was walking a tightrope, balancing between paranoia and prudence. Every fiber of my being screamed danger, but I couldn't let fear cloud my judgment. I'd weathered storms before, I reminded myself, thinking back to the challenges I'd faced and overcome. This situation was different, more personal somehow, like a betrayal waiting to happen. I steeled myself, drawing on the strength I'd built over decades of facing life's curveballs. Come what may, I was determined to uncover the truth and protect those I held dear.
As Melinda continued her investigation and Anita kept taking notes, Samuel, unaware of the danger, tried to balance his work in caring for his mother. "I hope Jeremy is doing his job properly," Samuel thought to himself. "I trusted him, but my mother's words still bother me. Maybe I should spend more time with her, just to make sure everything is all right." Despite his growing anxiety, Samuel still struggled to fulfill all his responsibilities. Meanwhile, Jeremy, though sensing the tension in the air, desperately tried to maintain his outward appearance. "I need to be more careful," he thought to himself. "Anita is starting to suspect something. I can't let her ruin the plan. I have to be more cautious to ensure no one notices anything until it's too late. This job has to be perfect, or I'll lose everything." Jeremy continued making phone calls and preparations under Anita's watchful eye, his mind racing with these thoughts.
I felt my vigilance intensifying with each passing moment, like a tightly wound spring. I knew I had to keep my cool, but it was getting harder by the minute. "Don't let fear take over," I told myself, trying to steady my nerves. I had to stay strong and wait for the right moment, just like I'd done so many times before in my life. Melinda was out there, digging for the truth, bless her heart. I held on to the hope that once everything came to light, Samuel would understand too. Until then, I had to keep my eyes peeled and jot down every little detail. I couldn't let Jeremy suspect a thing, or it would all go up in smoke. As the uncertainty swirled around me like a thick fog, I clung to hope like a lifeline. Night gently descended upon me, and the evening breeze softened the day's heat. I sat in my living room, attempting to lose myself in a book, but my mind was a beehive of thoughts. The doorbell's chime startled me to my feet. It was Melinda, clutching a small bag of tea like a peace offering. Oh, Melinda, what a sight for sore eyes. I exclaimed, pulling her into a tight embrace. I ushered her into the living room, confessing how my mind was in a tailspin and how desperately I needed to talk to someone I could trust. Melinda's smile was as warm as sunshine, meant to soothe my frayed nerves. She'd brought some tea, she said, suggesting we sit down so she could share what she'd uncovered about Jeremy. As we settled on the sofa, savoring the warmth of our tea, Melinda began to unfold her discoveries. My blood ran cold as she revealed the truth about Jeremy's past. Multiple fake IDs, a string of short-term jobs, all involving the elderly. It was a pattern as clear as day. He'd worm his way into people's lives, gain their trust, and then things would go sideways, items disappearing, people left confused and bereft. It was exactly as I'd feared, and suddenly, my paranoia didn't seem so far-fetched anymore. "Oh, Melinda," I whispered, my voice quavering with a mix of vindication and terror. I knew something was off from the get-go. The realization that such a dangerous individual had been so close sent shivers down my spine. Melinda, bless her heart, tried to calm me down, her hand warm and reassuring on my shoulder. She promised to visit the police station the next day to see what could be done without tipping Jeremy off. As the evening wore on, I felt the soothing effects of the tea begin to take hold. My eyelids grew heavy, and before darkness enveloped me, I managed to thank Melinda for being such a wonderful friend. Hours later, I found myself jolting awake in an alleyway, with no recollection of how I'd gotten there. Melinda, on her way to the market, found me looking lost and confused. She insisted on taking me home, her voice laced with concern. But nothing could have prepared me for the shock that awaited us. As we stepped into my house, I felt my world tilt on its axis. Everything, my furniture, my valuables, it was all gone. The once cozy home filled with memories now felt eerily empty and cold. "Melinda," I croaked, my voice thick with desperation, "what on earth happened here?" As she tried to piece together the puzzle, I stood there, feeling as hollowed out as my home. I felt as if I'd been thrust into a nightmare, unable to wake up. My world had been turned upside down in the blink of an eye, leaving me grasping for any shred of understanding. Melinda, bless her heart, was trying to piece together the puzzle of the previous night. She told me I'd fallen asleep during our conversation, and she'd asked Jeremy to look after me before she left. The thought sent chills down my spine. Had I been so vulnerable, so exposed? Melinda suggested we call Samuel right away, her voice steady but laced with urgency. As the phone rang, I felt my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. Samuel's voice came through, worry evident in every word. I tried to explain what had happened, but my voice was trembling. I told him about waking up in an alley, about our emptied house, about my suspicions of Jeremy. It felt like I was describing a scene from a crime novel, not my own life. Samuel, ever the voice of reason, cautioned against jumping to conclusions about Jeremy. His words made me pause, like a splash of cold water on my fevered thoughts. Then, like a bolt from the blue, I remembered overhearing Jeremy's phone conversation about a plan. As I recounted it to Samuel, I could hear the gears turning in his mind. To my utter shock, Samuel revealed that he had been on the other end of that call. It had all been about a surprise birthday party for me, a loving gesture that had spiraled into this mess of misunderstanding and fear. Relief washed over me like a warm summer rain, but it was short-lived. The mystery of my missing belongings and lost memories still loomed large, a dark cloud on the horizon. I could hear the determination in Samuel's voice as he promised to come right away. His words were like a lifeline thrown to a drowning woman. When Samuel arrived, his embrace felt like coming home after a long, treacherous journey. As he held me, I could feel some of my fear melting away, replaced by a glimmer of hope. Samuel asked Melinda to search for more clues while he stayed with me. His suggestion to contact the police felt like a step towards solid ground in this sea of uncertainty. As Melinda nodded and set off on her mission, I clung to the belief that together, we would unravel this mystery and set things right. I felt like I was caught in a whirlwind of confusion and fear, with each revelation spinning me further into disbelief. As Melinda left to make some calls and look for clues, Samuel and I were left alone in the eerily quiet house. My son turned to me, his eyes filled with regret and determination. He apologized for leaving me with someone we didn't know well, explaining that he only wanted me to be safe and comfortable. His voice cracked with emotion as he promised to make things right. I tried to keep my composure, but my heart felt as heavy as lead. I confessed to Samuel that all I wanted was for everything to be back to normal. This house had always been my safe haven, filled with happy memories, but now it felt like a stranger's home. My trust in people had been shaken to its core, leaving me feeling vulnerable and lost. As we began to search the house for any clues, each empty room felt like a punch to the gut. The shadows of furniture past seemed to mock us, reminding me of what I'd lost. As we climbed the stairs to the attic, a muffled cry caught our attention. My heart began to race, pounding like a drum in my chest. When we opened the attic door, the sight before us knocked the wind out of me. There was Jeremy, bound and gagged, looking as scared as I felt. Samuel's disbelief was palpable as he questioned what was happening. As he called the police, I removed Jeremy's gag, my curiosity overriding my caution. Jeremy's words came out in a rush, painting a picture so unbelievable it made my head spin. He accused Melinda, my dear friend of many years, of being the true culprit. According to Jeremy, she had drugged my tea, making me forget everything. He claimed she was a cop who had overpowered him when he tried to confront her. The accusation hit me like a ton of bricks, leaving me reeling. Samuel's anger was evident in his voice as he questioned how we could trust Jeremy. As Jeremy continued to defend himself, I felt caught between two impossible truths. My mind raced, trying to reconcile the Melinda I knew with the person Jeremy was describing. It was like trying to fit together pieces from two different puzzles. I couldn't help but wonder if this was how it felt to have the rug pulled out from under you, to have your world turned upside down in the blink of an eye. The weight of uncertainty pressed down on me, making it hard to breathe. I yearned for the simple days when trust came easily and friends were just friends. As we waited for the police to arrive, I couldn't shake the feeling that no matter what happened next, nothing would ever be the same again. I felt like I was walking on a tightrope, with truth and deception on either side, not knowing which way to lean. Jeremy's desperate pleas echoed in the attic, his voice trembling with a mix of fear and frustration. He begged us to verify his past, insisting that the elderly he'd cared for could vouch for his honesty. As I listened, a seed of doubt began to take root in my mind, growing with each word he spoke. I turned to Samuel, my voice barely above a whisper, as I voiced the possibility that we might have been wrong all along. The thought that Melinda, my dear friend of so many years, could be the real culprit sent chills down my spine. Samuel, ever the voice of reason, suggested we call Melinda again to test Jeremy's claims. As the phone rang unanswered, I felt my heart sink like a stone in a pond. The silence on the other end spoke volumes, and I could see the worry etched on Samuel's face. With trepidation, I looked at Jeremy, my voice a mix of fear and hope as I told him we needed all his evidence. The gravity of the situation weighed heavily upon me. If Melinda was indeed the perpetrator, we needed to act fast, but the thought terrified me to my core. Jeremy, sensing a chance to be believed, quickly offered to provide contact information for the families he'd worked for. As he spoke, I felt as though I was trying to piece together a jigsaw puzzle with half the pieces missing. The possibility that I had been deceived by Melinda filled me with a fear I hadn't felt since childhood. Samuel and I exchanged glances, silently agreeing that we couldn't ignore the possibility that Jeremy was telling the truth. With trembling hands, Samuel picked up the phone again, ready to dial one of the contacts Jeremy had provided. As he punched in the numbers, I sat down next to Jeremy, still bound, feeling a strange mix of helplessness and determination. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were on the brink of uncovering a truth that would change everything. As we waited for someone to answer on the other end of the line, I found myself holding my breath, praying for clarity in this fog of uncertainty. I felt my heart pounding fiercely. I spoke with a trembling voice, mixed with fear and determination. "I'm going to uncover the truth, Jeremy," I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. "If you're telling the truth, I'll make sure justice is served. But if you're lying, there won't be another chance." A shiver ran down my spine as I thought about the gravity of the situation we were in. It was like being caught in a whirlpool of deceit and suspicion, not knowing which way was up. I glanced at my son Samuel, his face a mirror of my own anxiety as we waited for the phone to ring. Samuel's voice was strong, but I could hear the underlying tension as he addressed Jeremy. "We're all caught up in this mess now," he said, his eyes never leaving Jeremy's face. "Mom," he said, taking a deep breath, "I think we have to trust Jeremy. Let's untie him and try to understand what's really going on. Then we can make a plan." I watched, still shaken, as Samuel began to untie the ropes binding Jeremy. It reminded me of a scene from one of those crime dramas I used to watch, except this was terrifyingly real. "I hope we're doing the right thing, Samuel," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "This all feels like a nightmare, and I don't know who to trust anymore. But if there's a chance Jeremy's telling the truth, we need to find out." My words reflected the internal struggle between suspicion and hope that was tearing me apart. As Jeremy rubbed his wrists where the ropes had left marks, I couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt mixed with lingering doubt. Jeremy's voice was tense as he spoke. "Thank you for releasing me. I know it's hard to believe me, but I'm going to prove that I'm telling the truth. We need to trick her into revealing the real plan." Samuel nodded, the gravity of the situation evident in his furrowed brow. "We need to handle this as carefully as possible," he said, his mind clearly racing with ideas. "Let's plan this in detail. Mom, can you call her from a number Melinda won't recognize? Use Jeremy's phone and tell her that Jeremy has been caught. Say that we need her help to capture Jeremy, and that Jeremy has been lying about her." As Jeremy explained the plan, I felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through my veins. I took Jeremy's phone in my trembling hands, feeling the weight of what we were about to do. "I'll make the call now," I said, trying to steady my voice. "I just hope she answers and falls for our act. We need to be convincing to lure her into our trap." My fingers shook as I dialed Melinda's number, praying that this would work. After several rings, Melinda answered, her voice laced with irritation. "Hello, who is this?" I took a deep breath, channeling all my acting skills from my community theater days. "It's me, Anita," I said, injecting panic into my voice. "I'm sorry for calling from a different number, but I've been trying to reach you every way I could. Something terrible has happened. We've caught Jeremy, but he's been telling awful lies about you. Please, we need your help to stop him and sort out this mess. He's acting so strange, and we need you to come and straighten things out." I could almost hear the wheels turning in Melinda's head as she quickly responded. "Anita, calm down," she said, her voice dripping with false concern. "I'll go to the police station right away. Let's get this sorted out. Don't worry, I'll take care of everything. I'll meet you there and we'll clear this situation up. Trust me." As I hung up the phone, I felt a mix of relief and apprehension wash over me. "She said she's going to the police station," I reported, my voice still shaky. "She seemed to believe my story." "Samuel, we need to get ready. We should talk to the police chief and make sure everything's set up for when she arrives." Samuel nodded in agreement, reaching for his own phone. "I'll call him now," he said, his tone resolute. "We need his help to set this up and catch Melinda red-handed. We have to make sure they arrest her as soon as possible." As Samuel dialed the police chief's number, I couldn't help but marvel at how our lives had turned into something straight out of a crime novel. I just hoped that when the dust settled, we'd all be on the right side of justice.
After several rings, the police chief answered the phone. "Chief, this is Samuel. We're in a very serious situation here. I need your help to arrest Officer Melinda. We have reason to believe she's involved in criminal activity. We want to catch her red-handed. Can you help us expose her true colors?" Samuel's voice was filled with urgency. Sensing the gravity of the situation, the chief responded immediately. "I understand, Samuel. Let's plan how to apprehend Melinda. I want to know all the details of the plan, and we need to prepare the station for this. We've got to handle this as discreetly as possible so she doesn't suspect anything." The chief began making the necessary preparations. Samuel explained the plan in detail. "My mother spoke with Melinda and made her believe that Jeremy had been caught. Melinda thinks that my mother doesn't trust Jeremy and believes that her help is needed to capture Jeremy. When Melinda arrives, we need to make her think we're still deceived until her intentions become clear." Samuel's tone conveyed both confidence and the tension of the situation. The chief agreed. "Got it, Samuel. We'll have the station ready for action when Melinda arrives. I want everyone prepared to intervene at just the right moment, carefully. We can't let her suspect anything beforehand." The chief began mobilizing his officers.
As we began to prepare for our performance, I felt a strange mix of emotions: fear, determination, and a hint of sadness for the friendship I was about to lose. My son Samuel took charge, outlining everyone's roles in our plan. He explained that Jeremy needed to be in the right place when Melinda arrived, while Samuel and I would pretend to be trying to stop him. The police chief and his officers would be ready to act as soon as Melinda revealed her true intentions. I watched Jeremy nod, his face a mask of determination despite the pressure he must have been feeling. He assured us he'd do his best to make Melinda believe our story, emphasizing the need to catch her and expose the truth about her actions. As I listened, I felt a new strength rising within me, pushing aside the tension that had been gnawing at my insides. "Let's do this together," I said, my voice stronger than I expected. I still can't believe a friend of so many years could be involved in something so terrible. But if it's true, we have to face it and see justice done. I'm ready to play my part. I was trying to convey confidence, not just to them, but to myself as well. It reminded me of the time I had to testify in court years ago, that same mixture of nerves and resolve. Samuel, seeing the determination in my eyes and Jeremy's stance, seemed to grow more confident. He squeezed my hand, his touch warm and reassuring, just like his father's used to be. "It's going to work, Mom," he said softly. "We're all in this together, and we're going to catch Melinda. Just stay calm and stick to the plan. When this is all over, we'll finally know we've done the right thing." Time seemed to crawl by at a snail's pace as we made our final preparations. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat, but I knew I had to be strong. I thought of all the book club meetings, the shared confidences over coffee. How could Melinda have betrayed all that? Samuel was in constant contact with the police chief, making sure everything was ready for Melinda's arrival. Each minute felt like an eternity, but finally, all was set. We took our positions according to the plan, with the attic of my house serving as our stage. It felt surreal, like we were actors in some bizarre play. "Samuel, Jeremy," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "remember to follow the plan exactly as we agreed. We can't let Melinda notice anything out of the ordinary. We need to make her feel like we're still fooled until the very last moment." I was reminding them of the importance of the details, but also steeling myself for what was to come. Samuel squeezed my hand again, trying to infuse me with confidence. "It's going to work, Mom," he repeated. "Everything's in place. Melinda won't suspect a thing. Let's make this happen." His eyes met mine, filled with a fierce determination that made my heart swell with pride. Jeremy, ready to face this final challenge, spoke up. "Let's do this," he said, his voice low but steady. "This is our chance to reveal the truth and make Melinda answer for her crimes. I'm ready. Let's see justice done." I could see the resolve building within him, like a fire slowly gaining strength. As the appointed time arrived, I gave Samuel and Jeremy one last look before the confrontation. "It's time," I said, my voice strong and full of determination. "Let's do this together." Samuel and Jeremy were ready to face the outcome of this terrible situation, their faces set with grim determination. With everything in place and everyone in position, Samuel and I waited anxiously for Melinda's arrival. We knew this would be the decisive moment that would reveal the truth and bring justice for all the pain we had endured. The attic felt stuffy and claustrophobic as we waited in silence. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears, the adrenaline making me hyper-aware of every little sound. Finally, we heard a car pull up in front of the house. It was Melinda. The moment of truth had arrived, and I silently prayed for strength to see this through. I felt my heart racing as I reminded everyone to stick to the plan exactly as we'd agreed. We had to keep Melinda fooled until the crucial moment. As I tried to maintain my composure, I heard Melinda enter the house, calling out for me. Her voice echoed through the empty rooms, saying she'd come to help and resolve the situation. Samuel and I were in position, and we signaled Jeremy to get ready. I called back to Melinda, trying my best to sound confused and desperate. I told her we were upstairs and that Samuel was with me, asking for her help to restrain Jeremy. My voice quavered, not entirely from acting. The stress of the situation was real. I heard Melinda's footsteps quickly ascending the stairs. She entered the attic, her face a mask of false concern that made my stomach churn. She told us to stay calm, asking where Jeremy was and insisting we needed to stop him before he caused more trouble. Following our plan, Samuel and I signaled for Jeremy to make his appearance. I spoke up, my voice trembling, telling Melinda that Jeremy was here and saying terrible things about her. I pleaded with her to help me understand what was going on, feeling like I was teetering on the edge of a precipice. Samuel and I began questioning Jeremy, seemingly accusing him, but in reality trying to get Melinda to incriminate herself. It reminded me of a courtroom drama, except this time I was both actor and judge. Samuel asked Melinda if it was true that she had been giving me drugs to erase my memory. I held my breath, watching Melinda's face intently. To my shock and dismay, Melinda confirmed it, saying the drugs were necessary to keep me quiet. She accused Jeremy of lying about everything, her tone aggressive. I pressed on, asking Melinda about Jeremy's claim that she had stolen the furniture from my house. I struggled to maintain my facade, feeling like I was walking a tightrope over a chasm of betrayal. Melinda, now overconfident, revealed more than she should have. She boasted that only she knew where the furniture was stored, insisting she had taken care of everything so I wouldn't have to worry. I felt sick to my stomach as I listened to her casual admission of her crimes. Sensing we were close to catching Melinda red-handed, Samuel asked another question. He inquired about Jeremy's past, mentioning the false IDs Jeremy had supposedly possessed. Samuel's voice was strained with barely concealed anger as he asked how Melinda knew about such things. Melinda, now fully entangled in her web of lies, responded with chilling confidence. She claimed to have informants and admitted to investigating everyone who got close to me. Her words sent a chill down my spine as I realized the extent of her deception. She insisted Jeremy was a criminal and that she had done what was necessary to protect me. As I listened to Melinda's self-assured voice, I felt a surge of emotions, anger, betrayal, and a deep sadness for the friendship I had thought we shared. In that moment, Samuel and I exchanged a look. The time had come to unveil the deception, and I steeled myself for what was to come. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears, like the beating of war drums signaling the start of a battle. I took a deep breath, ready to confront the truth and bring this painful chapter of my life to a close. I took a deep breath, feeling a mix of determination and sadness as I confronted Melinda. "That's enough, Melinda," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. "Everything you've said only proves you've been lying. There's no way you could know all this if you weren't involved. This was a trap, and you fell right into it." As the words left my mouth, I felt a strange sense of relief, like a heavy burden was finally being lifted from my shoulders. Melinda's face contorted with rage as she realized she'd been deceived. She began shouting, desperately trying to regain control of her emotions. Her voice cracked as she insisted she'd done everything to protect me, accusing us of trying to frame her. It was like watching the final scene of a tragedy unfold before my eyes. The police chief, who had been observing everything from a nearby room, entered with his officers. His voice was firm as he addressed Melinda, explaining that they had already investigated her records. He revealed that they couldn't even figure out how she had become a police officer, as her documents were forged. As I listened, I felt a chill run down my spine, realizing the extent of Melinda's deception. The chief continued, stating that Melinda had used a false identity to enter the police force. "It's over now. We're arresting you," he concluded, his words ringing with finality. I watched, a mix of relief and shock washing over me, as Melinda was handcuffed. Her face was a mask of disbelief and anger as she was led away by the officers. "You don't know what you're doing. I'm innocent," she shouted, her voice fading as they took her away. As I stood there with Samuel, watching my old friend being arrested, I felt a confusing mix of emotions, relief that the truth was out, but also a deep sense of betrayal and loss. Later, at the police station, Samuel and I waited anxiously as the chief verified all the information. The chief's face was serious as he explained the results of their thorough investigation. He told us that Melinda had forged multiple documents to enter the police force and had been targeting me since becoming my friend. As he spoke, I felt my world shifting once again, trying to reconcile the Melinda I thought I knew with this criminal mastermind. "We've uncovered much more," the chief continued, his words sending a chill through me. Melinda was part of a criminal group targeting vulnerable elderly people. They would steal their property, erase their memories with drugs, and leave them confused and helpless. It must have taken a lot of courage to expose this. Samuel and I listened in horror, the full extent of the situation finally becoming clear. Samuel, always practical, asked about my furniture and belongings. The chief's response was somewhat comforting. They had managed to recover some of the stolen property. He explained that Melinda's arrest had helped unravel part of the criminal group, and they were following leads to the remaining accomplices. Despite the relief, I still felt the weight of the trauma. "Thank you, Chief," I said, my voice thick with emotion. I still can't believe I was betrayed like this by a friend of so many years. I'm glad justice is being served, but I don't know how to overcome this trauma. Samuel squeezed my hand, searching for words of comfort. He spoke with determination, assuring me that we would get through this together. He reminded me that the truth was out and justice was being served. "We'll reclaim what was lost and start anew, Mom. You're strong. We'll overcome this together," he said, his voice filled with resolve. As the days passed, Melinda's arrest led to the discovery of accomplices and the unraveling of the criminal group. Samuel helped identify other victims and recover some of the stolen property. I began to feel a small sense of relief, but the trauma still lingered. Knowing the truth was out and justice was being served was comforting, but I knew the emotional scars would take time to heal. Still, the courage and determination Samuel and I had shown were a testament to the strength we'd found in each other through this horrifying experience. After weeks of contemplation, I made a difficult decision. The place that was once my comfortable home now evoked too many painful memories. "Samuel," I said, my voice steady, "I've decided to sell the house. Every corner reminds me of Melinda's betrayal and the terrifying moments I've been through. I need a fresh start, somewhere I can rebuild my life without these shadows." Samuel agreed, understanding my need for change. He promised to help me find a new home where I could find peace and happiness. As we began packing up the remaining belongings, I discovered an old box of documents in the attic. "Look, Samuel," I said, carefully opening the box, "these are your father's old papers." I had almost forgotten about this box. Among the documents, I found an envelope containing a letter and bank documents. As I read the letter aloud, tears welled up in my eyes. "To my beloved Anita, if you're reading this, something unexpected has happened. I've set aside emergency funds to ensure you're always financially secure. Use it for whatever you need. With eternal love." Samuel was moved and surprised. He suggested using the funds to help me make a new start, ensuring I had everything I needed. With the emergency funds, I began planning my new beginning. "Samuel," I said, my voice filled with determination, "I want to use some of this money to help others too. I've always wanted to do something meaningful. Maybe we could start a foundation to help vulnerable elderly people like me. I want to turn my pain into something positive." Samuel smiled at me proudly, and in that moment, I felt a glimmer of hope for the future. Despite the trauma and betrayal, I realized that with my son's support and this unexpected gift from my late husband, I had the opportunity to not only heal, but to make a difference in the lives of others. It was a bittersweet feeling, but for the first time in a long while, I felt truly hopeful about what lay ahead. As I stood there, holding a bouquet of flowers, I turned to Samuel and said, "I want to visit the cemetery today. It's your father's birthday, and I need to thank him for everything. Without him, I don't think I would have found the strength to move forward." My voice trembled slightly, a mix of gratitude and lingering sadness coloring my words. At the cemetery, I knelt before my husband's grave, my heart heavy with emotions. "Thank you, my love," I whispered, my fingers tracing the engraved letters of his name. "Your emergency fund saved my life and gave me a chance at a new beginning. I promise to use this gift to do good and help others. You'll always be in my heart." I left the flowers and a thank you note, feeling a bittersweet ache in my chest. As I returned from the cemetery and entered my new home, I was enveloped in deep thoughts and emotions. The moment I opened the door, I was startled by vibrant, celebratory decorations. Colorful balloons, a "Happy Birthday" banner, and a table laden with delicious-looking food greeted me. Cheerful birthday music filled the air, infusing the house with a new energy. Samuel and Jeremy appeared, smiling as they held a large cake with lit candles. Samuel's eyes shone with pride and love as he explained that they hadn't forgotten my birthday and wanted to celebrate my strength and resilience. For a moment, I was speechless, but then a smile of appreciation spread across my face. "You all prepared this?" I asked, my voice thick with emotion. "I'm at a loss for words." "Thank you, Samuel." "Thank you, Jeremy. You have no idea how much this means to me after everything we've been through." Tears of happiness welled up in my eyes as I hugged my son and Jeremy tightly, feeling truly grateful to be surrounded by such wonderful people. The celebration was filled with smiles, love, and gratitude. It wasn't just a birthday, it symbolized a new beginning filled with hope and joy. As Samuel's help and community outreach efforts bore fruit, my new foundation began to grow rapidly. Many people volunteered to participate. During a foundation meeting, Samuel shared that the community's response had been incredibly positive. "We were receiving numerous donations and support," he said, "and my story had inspired many to join us." Watching the dedication of the volunteers, I felt a deep sense of peace. "I finally feel like I'm turning my traumatic experience into something positive," I said, my voice filled with emotion. "We're helping so many people, and it's giving me a sense of purpose. I think my husband would be proud." The foundation continued to grow, helping protect vulnerable elderly people from scams and abuse. I found a new meaning in my life, knowing that I had transformed my pain into a force for good. Each day brought new challenges, but also new victories, and I was ready to face them with courage and determination. Thanks to Samuel's support and the new foundation, I was able to transform my life. Selling the house full of painful memories, discovering the emergency fund, and establishing the foundation marked the beginning of a new phase. I finally felt at peace, knowing that I had found a way to turn my suffering into hope for many others. As I reflected on this journey, I realized that sometimes, out of our deepest pain can come our greatest purpose. It wasn't easy, and there were days when the weight of the past threatened to overwhelm me, but I had found a way to keep moving forward, one step at a time. The foundation became my beacon of hope, not just for others, but for myself as well. Each person we helped felt like a small victory against the darkness that had once threatened to consume me. I thought about how life can surprise you, how it can take you down unexpected paths. Who would have thought that at my age, after such a betrayal, I would find myself leading a foundation and making a real difference in people's lives? It was a reminder that it's never too late for a new beginning, never too late to find your purpose. As I looked around at the volunteers bustling about, at Samuel's proud smile, I felt a warmth spread through me. This was more than just moving on, this was about creating a legacy of hope and resilience. And in that moment, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, I was ready to face them, surrounded by the love and support of my new extended family.
If you enjoyed this story, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Your support is crucial for us to keep producing entertaining content on a regular basis. Don't miss our next exciting story coming soon to your screen. We sincerely appreciate your support. Until we meet again, take care and stay tuned.